Hi there. Good morning. It is, or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are in the world and when you may or may not stumble upon this video. It is Wednesday, March 9th, 2022, just after 11 a.m. here in Sarasota, Florida. And after a few weeks here, I've been called to do and capture another snippet, another recording. After my last video, where I sort of discussed taking on the big three, the three general areas that I specifically remember as a young adult, coming into my young adulthood, that I was forewarned, hey, if you want to keep the peace, if you want to, be well-liked and not rock the boat, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion, and I kind of add spirituality to that, and don't talk about money. I'm of the personal opinion that it is well beyond the time where we have these conversations. And in the past couple of years, since since the world has jumped into this new phase of reality, I have, as I shared in that last video, been introduced to two general categories of people and voices out there talking about two of the three. In general, the truther network is sort of tackling what I would say oversimplified and a generalization, but tackling more of the political stuff. And a lot of voices out there going and have been. Many of these voices are not just tackling this in the past couple of years. A lot of these people out there sharing, as I've learned, have been out there trying to share information for quite a few years regarding more of the political wing of what's really going on. Then we've got like the spiritualist or the new age or the more ascension. There's a lot of different terms that are sort of tackling in our voices, talking about the religion spirituality aspect of that triad. And as I shared in the last video, I believe that my take, my expertise, even though I categorize myself as living and for the past 9 years, after my spiritual awakening, everything about my life is spiritually founded, but I wouldn't put myself in that category as I've learned a little bit more about more of the, mass sort of frequency of that category and what people are talking about and how they're approaching it. I'm not really falling into that category, if only because I've hyper-focused my spiritual talk. I come at these high-level themes very much and very specifically on how I've been living them and integrating them and sharing my entire spiritual awakening process. So the area that I feel like I'm coming from or that I can speak to is more of the money. And that's simply because of how I launched into post-awakening what my life became, what my life is, what I'm trying to manifest. And one of the biggest things has been tackling an intuitive desire and what I feel like is almost a calling of blowing through this concept of money, this, having more honest conversations about how we value one another, how we value work, how we value various aspects of what it is to be human, and to try to work beyond this what I feel is a very limited concept of money. I don't believe money is inherently good or bad. I do believe it's a personality enhancer. I think when you have a lot of it, or the other end of the spectrum, more aspects are accentuated of one's personality and where one really is. I think it's a very revealing tool of where one really sits with one's beliefs in terms of how they approach money. But I'm not here to attack money in any way, shape, or form. I'm simply somebody that launched my little company of me in a very conscious, different way. And that was 9 years ago. And I've got 9 years of experience to speak to. Now, in addition to that area, if you will, as I've pondered and contemplated that video that I just did about 3 weeks ago, I've realized there's two other general areas that I feel I'm able to speak towards that may or may not help others that may or may not stumble upon my channel. And I wanted to touch on that second area today. This one's a little tricky to talk about, but basically, Oh gosh, you may or may not have heard the term 5D been thrown around. A lot of people talking about multidimensional aspects of our being, multidimensional aspects of reality, and that we're moving more from a 3D reality into a fifth dimensional reality and beyond. In general, let's just oversimplify again, because we're kind of left to having to do that in a succinct YouTube video. Let's just say it's very, very different than the limited material-based reality that we've all grown up in and brought up in modern day. That paradigm, that reality is definitely shifting and falling away to whatever extent one is able and willing to accept and see that present moment here in 2022. And there is ample opportunity for us to really begin to shift into what I just call a vaster way of seeing reality, a vaster existence, including much, much more than the very limited reality of the past and arguably where we still are at the present is. I have, in my experience at this little organic farm that, if you've watched any of my videos, I've referenced the farm many, many, many times. It is both an inspirational place and a positive place for me on my journey, and also a maddening place for me on my journey. And the reason for that is because I wouldn't necessarily label it as fifth dimensional, but it's definitely not ever has it been in its existence, and certainly not present day is it resemble anything of the regular world, of the mainstream business world. This is a man, our farmer, who has been the real deal from moment one. The guy is clearly not motivated by money. He's not motivated by anything of that mainstream world, and therefore he operates his business very, very differently than the average business person. I have had a front row seat to this since my first time I lived in Sarasota, which was I moved here in June of 2008. I started working at the farm in the capacity of the office. I handled payroll, very limited office role. And then within a month or two, I quickly moved into a full-blown farmhand. I've left town for a period of time and then moved back to Sarasota in 2013 and have been at the farm since the end of 2013 in some capacity ever since then. I now fully operate the office. I also operate a couple of other aspects of the business. And we've been barely hanging on for quite a few years. And we've been barely hanging on because organic, the whole idea of organic, became mainstream. And then you started to get really big corporations and big business into the organic world. And like what always happens when big business goes up against little business has a much harder time surviving. And we have faced that. And as a result, we're still open, but we're barely hanging on. And that remains true here at the present moment. Additionally, our farmer is not a young man. He is into his 70s. There is currently no plan for this to exist past him being the only person that's the decision maker, the only person that is operating the farm. And I really use that term very, very loosely, because it really is a place of, for lack of a better way of saying it, anarchy. It is wholly unique. And my front row experience there for now the better part of 13 seasons makes me very qualified to speak of navigating the balance between the world of business in the third dimension, which we still have to do at the farm. I'm working on the tax return today, which was due next week because we filed an extension. I mean, we still have to do everything of the third dimensional requirements to stay in business. But the underlying intentions, the underlying foundation of energy that is at play there we're in both worlds.